You had to pick an outstanding memory from your diplomatic career. What might that be?
Perhaps making the first trip into Switzerland in 1944, after Paris was liberated, and Switzerland, the border to Switzerland, had been sealed off for 4 years. I had just been assigned to the embassy in Paris to start a courier service there 3 weeks after it was liberated. Our transportation came from SHAEF, Supreme Headquarters, General Eisenhower's headquarters, which consisted of jeeps. Gave me a jeep and then another jeep with a couple of soldiers in it. We traveled across France to the Swiss border. We were the first Americans that the Swiss had seen in 4 years. Had a wonderful time with our passport, visas. Finally let me in. The 2 soldiers stayed at the border. I took a train up to Bern.
For the State Department.
Alan Dulles, John Foster Dulles' brother, was head of the OSS there. And he was highly interested, of course, that there was the beginnings of a courier service into Switzerland, which he had great use for. I also was given the task of conducting 2 members of the embassy staff there back to Paris. We were just opening the embassy in Paris and they needed staff. These 2 people had served there before. Perhaps it was a very interesting time and episode in the courier service.
I'll tell you about the thrill of my life because the courier service has a reputation for never having lost a pouch. One night in Frankfurt, Jim Lassiter, one of the regional courier supervisors, called me on the telephone and told me that a courier had just returned from a trip who was short a pouch. Well, I thought our worldwide reputation was going to go down on my watch. What we had to do was go back to the originator of the pouch and find out what was in it and for whom it was intended, and then go to the post of destination and find out did they have it. Well, in this case, it was an easy solution because they had received the pouch, but what had happened is it was a small pouch, and at the Frankfurt pouch room, it had been enclosed in another pouch for the same post. But it was listed on the courier's receipt as an outside pouch. So when he came to match up his receipts, he was short one. That cleared our record and saved our reputation, I think.
A little bit about how it all started. After World War I, they had the first need for couriers. And they had a couple of ex-Marine guards at the embassy, and they chose them to carry these bags around by train in Europe and deliver them from one embassy to another. One was a fellow by the name of Al Fraser, who served as a courier right through until World War II, and I think probably 10, 15 years after World War II. He was there for a long time, and he was quite an old man when he finally retired, I guess in his 80s. That was the extent of a courier service, and it operated out of Paris, the embassy in Paris.
And the government of the United States.
When World War II was beginning, was coming up, there began to be felt a need for a courier service, a more organized service. And a man by the name of Nathaniel P. Davis, who was Director of Personnel in the State Department back in the early 40s, recruited 2 of us from Princeton, myself and a fellow by the name of P. Henry Muller. And we were sent to Panama, the first couriers, to begin a service. We were accompanied on the first trips with 2 Foreign Service officers, Fletcher Warren and Livingston Satterthwaite, so that we wouldn't go the wrong way or get lost somewhere. So we were accompanied by senior people. 2 or 3 months later, another chap arrived by the name of Sheldon Wells. So there were 3 of us, and we had one of us going around South America this way and one going that way, and then one going up to Mexico City from Panama and back. I'm talking about July of 1941. Pearl Harbor arrived, And then things heated up. And we began to receive more and more young couriers from Washington. They were all people who had been in the State Department. Tommy Valenza, Harry French, George Weber. It wasn't enough. And pretty soon, we had to call on the military services. At this time, we were in the war. There was a draft, and it was very difficult, if not impossible, to find civilians who were available. So we called on the military, and they offered us officers from the Navy and from the Army. We had a very elaborate courier service going then by the middle, I'd say, of 1942 or so.